Hey there, Andrew here. I love to be entertained, but I have no patience. So I give every new show I watch only one episode to hook me. Welcome to Debut Review. Hellbound. Unearthly beings deliver bloody condemnations, sending individuals to hell and giving rise to a religious group founded on the idea of divine justice. Okay. Sounds cool. I was going to say, let's see how it is, and then cut to 20 minutes later, 30, 40, 50 hour later, however long this is. I can see. How long is this? Come on. Come on, remote. 48 minutes. Okay. So, but I did want to point out before I jump straight into the episode, I know, or rather, other than the premise, hellish beasties are just grabbing people and dragging them to hell, or murdering the hell out of them and dragging their souls to hell or something like that. I have heard no one talk about this. I take that back. My friend Dawn, with a W, she liked this show on Facebook, so I don't recall her saying anything about it other than she liked it. So Dawn likes it. I haven't heard anything good or bad. I've heard no one talk about this. Doesn't mean no one's talking about it. They're just doing it out of earshot. I don't take it personally. I'm sure they meant to include me, but you know, with the postal service the way it is, I'm sure the invite got lost in the mail, and you know how it is. Anyway, Hellbound. Browned? Yes, Hellbound. There's Hell Greened, Hell Redded, Hell Oranged, and Hell Browned. See you on the other side. So if you've seen the advertising for this show, if you've seen the advertising I saw for this show, it featured some hapless dude screaming, running for his life down a city street, being chased by big, burly smoke monsters, who then beat the snot out of him and, I guess, yank his soul out and drag it to hell or something. That's the opening scene of this movie, first episode. That's how it starts, pretty much. It's a good opening. It's very provocative. It's like, ooh, big smoke monsters beating the snot out of someone. What's going on here? Not entirely clear yet, but not unclear in a way that it feels the show doesn't know what it's doing, just that it hasn't revealed everything yet. The biggest thing I don't know that I want to know is, how long has this been going on? How frequent is it? Because there are a lot of people who are like, oh, the demon thingies, that's not a real thing. That's just stuff people make up. Oh, all the videos we see are, CG and stuff like that. And considering the quality of the CG in this show, maybe that's not hard to believe. But, and you might say, oh, come on, how could anyone deny the reality of what's clearly happening? And then you remember, oh yeah, I live in the world today. So, okay, not too surprising, I suppose. But, so it starts out with people are like, oh, that's a thing, oh, I'm getting all culty about it, and people are like, oh, that's internet bullcrap. So, the leader of the New Truth, which is the religion that popped up around this whole phenomenon, states that he ran into the smoke monsters yanking a guy's soul 10 years ago. So, if he's to be believed, this has been happening at least for a decade. But how often. They have video of this, so maybe it's, this is the first time it's happened in Korea. Um, you know, there's one that happened in Japan. There's one that happened in Tibet, apparently. One happened somewhere. So maybe they've been very sporadic and just, out in the middle of nowhere in some places. So the new truth, the religion that cropped up around this is like, this is God's will, you see. God is telling us not to be mean old bad peoples, or he's gonna send big burly smoke monsters to beat the snot out of us and rip our souls apart and drag us to hell. Teach us what for. Is that what's really happening? I'm gonna guess no. Clearly something supernatural appears to be happening, but I'm gonna guess the new truth is in on it. This kind of feels like someone has figured out a way to summon demons that will do bad things. Because the cult leader, he tells the police at some point, he's like, I grew up in a Catholic orphanage and I was suicidal, and so I wandered out into the woods and just happened upon the demon peoples beating the snot out of a dude and yanking the soul out. And from then on, I was a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried. Why did I switch to monkeys? And so he searched the world for the truth, and he's like, that changed my life. And I'm like, this strikes me as bullshit. I don't think he's being honest. I don't think he's a reliable narrator. For one, the odds that you just happened to run into the demon peoples abusing a dude in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert or wherever the hell he was, the plains of Tibet. Wow. That's a coinky dink. A dink of coinky, that is. Now, I could imagine... Now, the whole thing here is apparently, if you have sins, an angel might appear and say, 7 days! It's not ring, but it's essentially the ring, right? If you've sinned, an angel appears and says, you're going to die in 5 days at 3 p.m. And 5 days later at 3 p.m., the big burly smoke monsters come and beat the tar out of you. Okay. So I can imagine someone in that, with that deadline might run out into the middle of the woods or the middle of the plains of Tibet. Maybe they won't find me out here. You can say, oh, like that. Sure, I could imagine someone running out to the middle of nowhere to try to escape that. But the odds that he just happened to run across this guy at the exact time he was being brutalized by the big burly smoke monsters, maybe, but probably not. So I'm thinking this is not true. That this story is not true. That's my thoughts so far. So this is essentially, this show is so far a police procedural. The guy in Seoul who gets his soul beaten out of him is treated as a murder case. Well, big burly smoke monsters. We're gonna have to investigate this and see what's going on and bring them in cuffs, I guess. So they're looking into the new truth and this spin-off terrorist group called the Arrowhead, who is finding people who they think are going against God's will and beating the snot out of them. And it seems to be one of those things where it's like, oh, they're not following our true doctrine. But it also feels like one of those plausible deniability things. It's like, oh, I didn't tell them to do that. They just happen to be doing exactly what the logical extension of what I'm saying is. Oopsies. And these the Arrowhead are all minors, so they face light punishment, if any at all. So there's some interesting stuff going on here. And towards the end of the episode, we find some lady who runs a food cart who goes home, and her children are, "Happy birthday, mommy, we made you a cake." And an angel shows up behind her, which is a big uh, translucent, floaty, glowy-eyed face in her room that says, "You'll die in 5 days at 3 o'clock." So she goes to the New Truth and says, "What do I do?" And they're like, "Hey, can we broadcast your demonstration?" I don't know what the original word is, but that's how it's translated, and I kind of love that. That the demons beating the soul out of you is called a demonstration. I think that's pretty good. I would be curious to know what the original Korean word for that is, and what a more literal translation might be, if it's not just a made up word. But I do like the English word for it. I think it's pretty funny. And that's where the show leaves off. So, did the guy who got the soul beat out of him at the beginning of the show, did he have skeletons in his closet? Maybe even literally. We don't know yet. But there is an interesting perspective going on in this show, where a lot of people seem to be more focused on justifying the violence by trying to figure out what bad things the victim may have done. You know? And we see that in real life. When someone gets killed when they shouldn't have, routine traffic stop or something, and someone gets shot a bunch of times and they die. And then a lot of people will go, "Well, let me dig into this person's past. Aha! They have a DUI in their past at some point." Or they'll find something that they did wrong, or some criminal record in their past, as though that justifies what happened currently. And what's interesting is, according to the new truth, everyone who's had their souls beaten up had sinned. This guy here, he had 3 bodies buried under his living room floor. This person, a rapist. This person committed fraud. I'm like, wait, back up. Fraud? What kind of fraud? Because fraud's bad, sure, but is that really worth terrorizing someone for 5 days and then chasing them down a city street and beating the ever-loving crap out of them and then ripping their soul out in front of crowds of people, traumatizing them forever for fraud? I mean, they should definitely face consequences for that. Yeah, but that seems a bit much. Oh, my bleedy little heart. So, yeah. So we've got some interesting allegories going on here. Will I watch episode 2? Sure. Be interesting to see where this goes. If you watch it yourself, it's a slow burn. Cause hell. Yeah. Okay, that wasn't a very good joke. But one thing, I'll end on this. One thing that I found, second thing before I end on something. The acting is broad. I'm finding some individual performances quite good and others to be less so. So little uneven. But I would like to talk about the big burly smoke monsters. Because, man, they don't just show up. It's not like, the Grim Reaper shows up and says, "Okay, buddy, come to Papa. It's time to go. Oh, don't run. Don't run." Oh, come on. It's like, all right, let me put my arm around you and walk you towards the light. It's time to go. No. They're not gentle. The big burly smoke monsters, not gentle. They're going to beat the snot out of you and cause a lot of property damage. I mean, they brutalize and eviscerate you before yanking your soul out, which leaves you a crispy critter. And then they peace out. What I find so amusing is the way the big burly smoke monsters are animated, because they've got this constant backwards shoulder roll that they're doing. Because big burly smoke monsters, you see, and they walk like that constantly. You know, that big posturing reverse shoulder roll, and it's like they can't forward locomote unless they're rolling their shoulders back, and it's really, really, I find it most amusing. So give Hellbound a watch, won't you? And maybe, just maybe, you'll find the backwards shoulder roll amusing too. You might even like the rest of the show.